and welcome to today's Ask Us Anything edition of Free Training Thursday. I have Darren Juby here with me today, and he will be answering your questions live. As a reminder, all questions can be answered can be entered in the control panel, which should be to the right of your screen. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Darren, and he can hop right in.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's Amicus Next Free Training Thursdays webinar. This week, we're going to be focusing, like she said, on Amicus Attorney, Ask Us Anything. As always with these sessions, some questions have been submitted prior to today's session, so we're going to be getting to those ones first. And then as the session rolls along, if you guys want to add some questions using the question control panel, by all means, please do so. And time permitting, we will get to answering those. Please do include your email address when you input the question. That way, if I can't get it covered through the session today, then I can always follow up with you accordingly afterwards and get you the information that you were seeking. So without further ado, let's begin taking a look at some of the questions that were submitted prior to today's session. So first off, Michelle, Olivia, and Sabrina from the Derek K. Mura Law Corporation had submitted a few questions. So the first of which was in regards to custom pages. And they asked, within custom pages, we're able to look at client particulars, collision particulars, style of cause, etc. However, the text boxes showing these details are very small, and we often have to click each box itself to scroll and read in its entirety. So the question was, how do we make these text boxes bigger, as there's definitely enough room to do so that we can read all of the information without having to scroll through them? Well, to answer that first question, let me just pull up one of my contacts here. I've already taken the liberty of creating a custom page with a custom record on there so that we could display this. So I'm going to open up Roberta Boop here. And I'm going to go to the custom page that I created. So as you'll see, we've got a test text box on here, and I could put as much text as I want in here till it gets me to the point where I have to indeed utilize the scroll bar. So we can leave it as such. Now, let me just click Save and Close on that. Now, as an administrator in Amicus Attorney, because that's what it will require to be able to make this change for you guys, I do have administrative rights in the program here, so let me just go to the Office module. And we would go to Custom Pages and Records. So while we can't edit that field size itself on the custom page on the people record, we could edit it outside of that. So as an administrator, I can go to Custom Pages and Records. And like I said, I had already created this custom page, so I would simply expand the People section here. You'll see that I did create it on People. And if I click on that, you'll see that it's got the information over here for me, and I'm going to click on the Edit button. So here is that test text box. And as you can see, by clicking on it, I can increase the size of it. So let's just save those changes now. And again, let me just reopen that here so you guys can see. There indeed is the change size on that particular text box. So again, I will save and close. And let's just say OK. And let's go back to the same Roberta Boop people record here. I'll open up her contact details. And let's go to the custom page once again. And as you will see, that custom text box is now much, much bigger. So like I said, while I cannot adjust the size itself here on the people record, if I notice that it's too small, or in this case, maybe it's too big, I can talk to the administrator, or if I'm an administrator myself, I can go into the Custom Pages and Records editor, and I can make those changes. So to answer your question, ladies, like I said, these can be edited. However, you can't edit it here. So not every user can do that. It has to be an administrator to make that change. And of course, it's a one-time change that it will take effect moving forward. It's not like you can constantly have it being resized. I mean, you could if you were an administrator going in to do so, but that might seem unnecessary, I guess, for a lack of a better way of putting it. So I just wanted to show you guys how that would be done. Now, the second question that they asked was, how do we get rid of pop-up reminders on the screen? That's not really a question that I can answer in a session such as this. That would be more something that you should be directing to our technical support team. And the reason behind that is that, number one, to be able to answer that, we would require a little bit more context. And when I say that, it would be one of those things where technical support would probably want to remote onto your machine and have you guys demonstrate for them what you're referring to when you're talking about the pop-up reminders. Once they've got an idea of what's going on and what you're referring to, from there they would be able to either give you an answer or diagnose the issue and help you come towards a resolution for that. It might be a preference setting, it might be a setting on a reminder somewhere, or it may simply be something that they have to look into for you. So again, that would be a question more geared towards technical support than a training session. So I do apologize for not being able to answer that, but I hope at least giving you direction on where to go with that question will get you further towards a resolution. Now, the third question that you ladies had asked was, how can we set documents within a file to automatically appear as a list instead of the tiles or icons within the view? So let me go to the Files module here. And I'm going to open up a file here. I'm trying to think of which one I had some documents on. I believe it's this one. So if I go to the Documents view here, so by default, it's going to show up like this because I'm using Amicus Managed mode. If I was using User Managed mode, I would have one of these as my default views, either My Documents or All Documents, something along those lines. So the only thing I can really suggest is if you're not liking this particular view, either A, you could go to the My Documents view, and that will give you a list of your documents. Or you could go to the All Documents view. Or B, depending on how you're set up, I'm not sure if you guys are running with an on-premise installation or if you're running in Amicus Private Cloud, or APC for short, but depending on where you're running, you may be able to switch the user or the document management mode from being Amicus Managed to User Managed. If you're using User Managed, you're not going to have this document folders view. If you're using Amicus Managed, that's there by default because of the way that it handles everything in the back end of the program. So again, that would be something, like I said, you can definitely utilize these options to view the documents on the file in a list. But if you're using Amicus Managed mode, this is going to be the default. If you're using User Managed mode, you would not have that feature, or that view, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it. So that's something to take into consideration. And again, it may be worthwhile to talk to the technical support team about that. And from there, they'd be able to point you in the correct direction. Now, one more question that they had was regarding documents as well, and that was, how can we select more than one document within a file? Well, depending on what you want to do exactly with those particular documents, but let me show you here. If I'm in the list view, for instance, on My Documents, I could click on the first document here in the list, and holding the Control key on my keyboard, I can click on one of the other ones, or I can click on the first one, and holding the Shift key, I can click on the last one, and it will highlight all, including my first and last selections and everything in between. Whereas if I'm using the Control key, once again, it's only going to highlight and select the ones that I've actually clicked on while holding the Control key. So just like what you can do in Windows Explorer, as far as being able to select multiple items, that would be the way to go about doing so. So let me just close out of that. And so the next batch of questions that we received prior to today's session came from Deborah Akers Perry, and I hope I did pronounce your last name correctly. She's from Wolf and Akers, and she had a couple of questions here. So the first of which was, we very much need to generate a report that lists all entries made to the calendar on a given date, whether the entries post an event for that date or future dates. Can this be done, and if so, how? Well, I'm not 100% sure on whether you would get something out of the canned reports that's going to give you entries that were created today, for instance, that are for a future date. However, there are some calendar reports in here that are available. So if you go to the Office module and go to the Reports section, and then go to the calendar. Here are all the calendar reports. There's the basic reports, but there are also advanced reports. Now, if you're not getting what you're looking for out of any of these particular reports or the advanced ones, which are SQL reports templates, then what I would suggest is speaking to our professional services team regarding the creation of a custom SQL reporting template for this purpose. They would be able to have a discussion with you on what it is that you want this report to be able to generate. Like I said, if it's not something that you're able to get out of the already included reports, and they would then be able to tell you, number one, whether this is something that is doable or not. And if they can do this for you, then they would give you a quote and a time frame as to how much it would cost and how long it would take to create that custom SQL reporting template for you. Now, the next question that Deborah had was, can I set Amicus Calendar to automatically sync with Outlook upon opening instead of first being prompted to respond yes or no? Well, I have good news for you, Deborah. You can indeed do that. So to do so, you would want to go to your preferences. So from the Office module, log in as yourself, go into preferences, and here under links, we have email and calendar and contacts. So you'd want to click on the calendar and contacts option here. And of course, you're going to have Outlook as the selection. So you click configure on this. And I'm already presuming that your link is already set up and everything, but what you can do, now these will all be showing you complete, obviously, if that link is indeed set up and initialized. But even if it is, and if it's not, you can set this at the time of initialization. But you could come in here and click on step 1, and you'll see that there's an option right here that says, ask me each time I log in if I wish to synchronize with Outlook. If you deselect that option, it's not going to ask you. It's simply going to do it for you. And again, you can set the intervals as to how often it does a synchronization. I wouldn't recommend going much lower than 15 minutes. There's a reason behind that as well. It's something that we've always stressed from a support perspective for many years, is that if you've got that window of time between synchronizations too short, depending on how much data you're actually synchronizing, you could end up in a spot where you get caught in a nasty loop where the first synchronization hasn't even completed yet before the second instance of that synchronization is trying to begin. So let's say you had it set to 5 minutes and you had a lot of calendar events and contacts that needed to go through and be synchronized. It's got to finish that first synchronization before it moves on to do the next one. So you want to make sure you give an interval that, while still being convenient and, time management friendly for you, you also want to take into consideration the alternative. I'm trying to make it too fast. It actually might come back and bite me and slow me down and cause me a little more grief in my day than I actually need. So stick with an interval of about 10 to 15 minutes. I stick with 15 minutes. The odds are good that I'm not going to need anything much quicker than that. But again, if you do, you might want to change that setting. But my recommendation always is try to stick around that 15-minute interval, and you'll notice that your life is just much better, and the synchronization process will run much smoother for you. I rarely have seen cases where a synchronization will take longer than 15 minutes. So that being said, you should get through the first one before that subsequent synchronization begins. I'm just going to say cancel on that because I don't want to save those changes. But again, just to reiterate, come in here and click on configure, click on step 1, and just remove that check mark to be asked each time you log in about synchronizing with Outlook. Okay, now Deborah had 2 other questions here as well that I'm going to quickly address. Her first one was, is there a way to arrange a tutorial that covers calendar only and not the other features within Amicus Attorney? Well, of course there is. There is the tutorial office within the program itself that you could play around with. It does have data in it, but it's not your live data. So there's always that option. And of course, by doing that, you might want to utilize the help documentation as well. Now, I don't want to make it seem like I'm only directing you to self-help type of things. So if this is something where you'd rather have a training session, then what I would suggest doing is speaking with your account manager here at Abacus Next in regards to the purchase of a 1-hour training session. The cost of a 1-hour training session is $197 US. And Once that's done, you could then schedule a custom training session with me if it's Amicus Attorney, because I am the Amicus Attorney trainer. And from there, I would make sure that I've got a custom training session created for you that would cover the calendar module only. And we would spend an hour going through that module, doing an overview, covering all the basics, and covering more of the intangibles as well. And of course, if you had questions during that 1 hour training session, well, we address those questions while we're going through it. And of course, your last question was, in the office view, when I click on Open Tutorial, why does the box tell me repeatedly that the tutorial is not ready? And now what she's referring to, everybody, is here in the Office module. If we were to click on Open Tutorial, I use this in my training sessions quite often, but I have seen what Deborah is referring to here before in my times doing technical support and so forth, and I've even encountered it once or twice myself in setting things up. There's never a concrete way of resolving this type of thing, because there could be multiple factors at play here. It may be something environmental on your particular desktop or in your network or on your server that's impacting this, or it might be an issue with the tutorial database itself. In cases like this, I could speculate and give you a number of different scenarios and workarounds and resolutions and hope that one of them sticks for you. But rather than sending you on a wild goose chase, my best recommendation in a case like this is to contact our technical support team and have them investigate and provide a resolution for you if you have not already done so. And what they would do is they would get a remote connection to your machine, have you explain and show them the issue, and then from there they can take a look at the logs and see if they can determine, number one, is it environmental? Is it database related? Is it something programmatic? Whatever the case may be, they would diagnose the issue with you, utilizing those logs and so forth, and watching your workflow, and then help you come towards a resolution so that you could utilize and take advantage of the tutorial database. Now, the last batch of questions that we received prior to today's session, this one comes from Kathy Halliday at Hilton and Bishop PC. She's asking about Abacus Payment Exchange. She states that they have Amicus Attorney with billing. They didn't know that they had the option for APX, and she's wanting to know how to learn more about this amazing feature. Well, without going into too much detail, because realistically I could have spent the full session today on simply APX. So what I'm going to do is at least get you to the starting point, Kathy. So what you would do is, as an administrator in Amicus Attorney, if you're not an administrator, then you should go to your administrator and they would be able to do this. You can go into Firm Settings, and under the Billing section, you will see Abacus Payment Exchange here, APX in brackets. So if I click on that, you will see that there is a Learn More and Enroll button here. So if you were to click on that button, it's going to take you into the portal for this, and it will go through all the information that you would need to know about the actual process itself and onboarding for it and how to enroll. Now, as well, there is documentation within the program here that will give you quite a bit of information. So if you were to go to the Help menu here and select Billing User Help, I already have it open here. So to save us some time, it will open up in a web browser. And what you could do is, if you then scroll down the list here, you will see APX, Abacus Payment Exchange here. And you'll notice that I've expanded that section. And we've got a bunch of subsections here that go through all the information that you would need in regards to Abacus Payment Exchange, how to get enrolled, how to set it up, and how to take advantage. And of course, you could also speak with your account manager, purchase an hour of training, again, $197 US, and then schedule a custom training session with us. And when doing so, you would just simply want to specify that you want to focus on APX, Abacus Payment Exchange, and we would then set up a custom training session for you that covers off APX, and we'd go through all the intangibles of that, from setup and enrollment, all the way through to how to take advantage of it, use it, and so forth. Now, I do see some additional questions here, so I'm going to try my best to answer them in the few minutes that we have remaining. So the first one was submitted by Stan Galbraith, and I hope I pronounced your last name correctly, Stan. I used to have a teacher in high school named Mr. Galbraith as well. So, How do I deal with a client that has more than one corporation? I have many clients with multiple corporations. When I open the people record for that person, I can only assign them to one. That is correct. I've never encountered a situation where I've never encountered a situation before this where somebody's even asked me about this, to be honest with you. But the way that the contact records are indeed set up is that you can only have them linked, if you will, to one corporation in particular. However, what you could do as a bit of a workaround, Stan, is you could create, additional contact records for those companies and then simply link them in a relationship type of way. So, for instance, let me just quickly show you what I mean here. So let's open up Mr. Costanza here as an example. And what I could do is I could go to related people, and I could then add those particular corporations. So if I wanted to add, for instance, let me say people, and in this case, Vandalay Industries, I will select that as that is a company that I have a contact card already created for. And I could simply say that this is an employer. And I can also select the reciprocal relationship. So Mr. Costanza is the employee of Vandalay Industries. So I could say save on that. I mean, he's already linked to that, but now you can see I've got that there as well. And then I could add another one. So in this case, let's say that I don't have one already, but let's create a new one. So we'll create a company, and we will call this the Human Fund. We'll say next on that. So I'm just going to save that very quickly. And we will say OK on that. And so again, now I will have a link to that. And in this case, perhaps I don't have a relationship label for this already, but perhaps he's a consultant for this corporation or something along those lines. In this case, you know what? I'll just select that he's a client of this particular corporation, or that they are a client of his, I should say. And in here, I undefined. So we could say save on that. And again, I'm just using these as examples. And of course, that list of relationships can be customized within Amicus Attorney. But as you can see, I now have relationships, if you will, with both of those companies so far. So that might be a workaround in how you would work around that. Now, another question, let's see here. How do we show client ID and matter ID on the main files index? Ours only shows file and type. And this question comes from Sabrina. Okay, Sabrina, so what I can do here is you'll see let me go to the files module here quickly. You'll see that mine's already showing that information, but this is how I did that. So if I right click on the header up here, and let me just do that again. So anywhere in the header here where you've got file, type, client ID, and matter ID, if I right click on that, you'll see that I have an option called Show Fields. So let me select that. And as you can see here, there's a list of available fields, and here's the ones that are already showing. So let me just remove those two for a moment and say OK on that. So there is how yours is showing up currently. So if I go here and select Show Fields, I will add Client ID, and I will add Matter ID. You'll notice that I can also move them up in the order if I so choose. I'm going to leave stuff like that. Let's say OK. And as you can see, there is now the Client ID and Matter ID columns. And again, I can order them in the pane as I was doing, or I could simply drag this one over here like so. And as you can see, I've just moved things around, and I could resize accordingly as well. Okay, and I do see that the next one was a continuation of Stan's original question. I hope I've given you some information that's proven to be helpful on that front, Stan. And same holds for you, Sabrina. I hope that answered your question. Let me just see. Kara's got a couple of questions here. What you could do on the file I do not have email integration turned on, so this will be kind of a poor representation. But if I was to open up a file, so Kara's asking, is there a way to get a window view of saved communications in a file instead of having to open each individual email to see the message content? And I'm guessing by that you mean, like, do you mean a preview pane? I mean, if I had some emails listed, yes, they would be all listed here in a list. But you will see here on the email or on the file details itself, there is this preview pane on option. So if I turn that on, if I had an email over here, if I selected it, I would get a preview of that email over here. I hope that is what you were referring to in the context of that question. And I do see that you've got an additional question. Is there a way to search for specific correspondence that have not been saved to a client file outside of going into the communications module itself and searching in here? If it's not saved to a file, you're not going to find it in any of the other searches. And I'm just looking at the time here. Unfortunately, everyone, we are at the limit of our time frame. We've got about 3 minutes left, so just enough time for me to close here. I do appreciate all of the questions that have been asked and that we were able to get through and answer. I hope I've given you guys some information that you can take away from this, and it will prove to be quite useful for you guys. Kara, I do see that the preview pane was what you were looking for, so I'm glad that I was able to get you that. I do apologize for not being able to get to your second question there. Well, I tried to address it, but I didn't get you much, probably in what you were hoping for. But if there's anything additional, by all means, please do submit your questions to us, even using just training@abacusnext.com. And of course, we will try to get you the information you're looking for as quickly as we possibly can. I thank everybody for attending today's session and participating. And of course, next week, we will be doing Abacus court rules. So anybody that wants to get registered for that session, by all means, please do visit our website and get yourself registered ahead of time. And I will turn it over to Amanda here briefly. And again, thank you all for attending and have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day and week. I see that Amanda must be stepped away for a minute. So, Rick, I do see your second question. I definitely have time to touch upon that in the minute or so we've got left here. You asked about the interface when Amicus Attorney starts up. It always goes to full screen mode. You were wondering if there's a way to adjust that. Go to your preferences. Hopefully my Amicus Attorney decides to cooperate with me here. So if we go to our preferences and you go to defaults on login, there is an option here. You will see in the upper right, there's a drop-down menu. Your options are maximized or minimized. Select minimized. It won't open full screen for you. It'll open in more of a smaller square that takes up some real estate on your screen, but it will not be full screen for you. So that may be the best option for you. In regards to that. In regards to the spell checker, I would definitely recommend reaching out to our technical support team in regards to that, and that'd be something that they could investigate further for you. Off the top of my head, I can't think of why it would be doing what it's doing. I have not personally experienced that myself, but definitely do give our technical support team a call or reach out to them via an email, support@abacusnext.com. Or just reach out with our 800 number. It's 1-800-472-2289. Select the option for technical support, and they would be able to help you take a look at that issue and diagnose and see what's going on there. Well, I hope that has helped everybody out here. And again, we are at the 2:30 mark now, so I will. I'm not sure if Amanda's in the background there, but I will invite her to sign off on any closing that she wants to do before we close off today's session. Yes, Sabrina, it will be available on our website. Usually takes a few days or so, but it will be posted to the website, and you will be able to review this particular webinar with sound included. You're quite welcome. All right, everyone. Well, I'm guessing Amanda has stepped away, so I will end today's session. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. I hope you all found this informative, and we will see you next week for our webinar on Amicus Court Rules. Thanks a lot, and have a great day and great week, everybody.